You're tuning in to the Raised by Rentals program. This podcast will contain strong language and spoilers for decades-old media properties.
Join us.
Welcome, everybody. This is the podcast where we examine pop culture franchises of the VHS era, improv new stories, and refuse to stop living in the past and dwelling in nostalgia because it helps us to imagine how we might improve our favorite movies, TV, and games. I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And we were Raised by Rentals. Mike, it's our 75th episode.
Holy moly. Can't believe we've been doing this for that long.
I know, it's cool. It's I don't know that 75 is really like a huge anniversary, but you know me, I read a lot of comic books, so like the 25th, the 50th, and the 75th and 100th issues are like always the big oversized specials, you know.
Oh hell yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a cool milestone. I remember when we got to 25. I don't even remember offhand what episode that was, but I remember getting excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did our 50th episode, which, if I recall correctly, was our Ernest Goes to Slasher Camp, right? Wasn't that the 50th one?
Pretty sure that
last summer
was number 50. Yeah.
I had the list up in front of me, but the window crashed a minute ago, so I'm just doing it off the top of my head. But yeah, so it's summertime. Once again, our last anniversary was for our, Ernest Goes to Slasher Camp summer special. I hope that's right. And so we're here again to do another summer special. It's not going to be a big, oversized, huge project. Honestly, it's kind of a normal episode, but it being summertime, we figured, it's going to be spoopy season pretty soon. And we always go all in on a multiple episode series of scary / horror stuff. So we probably should do something in the summer before we get too close to that.
This is very true. Because yeah, even in the summer, we have a hard time not going to horror stuff, and we have several horror ideas that we have discussed. Some of which are original ideas, but horror nonetheless. So yeah, maybe not do so much horror right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard not to, because I don't want to say it's easy so much as it's just like a comfortable place where we know how to tell those stories. And
right.
I think that adding horrific elements or elements of like violence can make a lot of stories, maybe not better, but it adds something like interesting to a story.
Oh, totally agree. And I think when it comes to horror, because horror is such a wide topic, like, I mean, you have horror comedy, horror action, horror drama, body horror. Like, there's so many different things. Like, there's a lot of wiggle room in that genre. Whereas, like, if you're telling a comedy, you kind of have to stick with the laughs. You got to stick with the ha-has.
Yeah.
You don't want to suddenly, like, be telling a comedy and then, like, the little kid gets stung by bees and dies, like in fucking My Girl, and ruins the whole fucking movie, It's like, oh, this is a cute movie. Oh my God, I'm scarred for life. It's like
that's one of my favorite jokes from TikTok from a couple years ago, where somebody said, make a millennial cry in one sentence. And the answer was, where are his glasses? He can't see without his glasses.
Ah, no. It's so rough.
I guess that was 2 sentences, but still, it wins.
Oh God, it so does. But it's like, I don't know what it was about the 80s and early 90s that they just like to beat the shit out of little kids in the kids' movies. They're like, here's this fun kids movie, now watch it suffer. Like the fucking never-ending story. Great movie, I love it to death, but it's like, oh, what's the bad guy? You've lost hope. Life is pointless. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, just give these kids existential crises,
Yeah, well, I think it's telling that a TV show like Stranger Things, which is so steeped in 80s nostalgia, is itself a horror story. And all the movies and TV shows that it references and takes inspiration from are all horrific in some way. Even the ones that are supposed to be fun, like, oh, the Goonies, like it's a fun adventure for kids, except they're being chased by mobsters who want to literally kill them.
Right.
Oh man.
Oh
Well,
god.
and it's funny that you said that too, because I had it here in my notes that, since it's summer and we wanted to do like a summer movie, I thought it would be cool to take a couple of genres that are common for like the big summer tentpole movies, mix them together, and see what kind of like fun combo we can make. And the two that I wrote down that we talked about ahead of time are teen comedies, and that's
Mhm.
like American Pie, Porky's, hell, even like Can't Buy Me Love, which is very wholesome. uh,
I love that movie.
Me too. I love that movie. Patrick Dempsey is great. What
Oh,
was that movie he was in? Was it Loverboy?
Loverboy. I fucking love that one too. The extra anchovies.
Oh man,
Oh man.
I think you were about to say it. Was he McDreamy or McSteamy?
McDreamy.
Yeah,
Oh, it's McDreamy.
I should know.
And
Christina like binges Grey's Anatomy all the time.
I gotta say, I absolutely love that dude as an actor, and he fucking crushed it in Thanksgiving. So like, yeah,
Yeah.
going back to horror for a moment. He was
Yeah.
awesome in that movie.
Yeah, he's awesome at everything. I think he's great.
Oh, yeah.
Even in the really heavy soap opera melodrama of Grey's Anatomy, like he was definitely like one of the standouts. But
Oh, absolutely.
so, and of course the other genre would be just action movies, and I think that there's like blockbuster action movies like True Lies and Armageddon, and then there's other types of action movies that maybe aren't so epic in scope. And I think a good one is like the cop crime action movie like Beverly Hills Cop, or Point Break is one of my favorite ones.
Bad Boys, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, Bad Boys. That's perfect. Yeah, that's a great example. And it's funny because then the next thing I wrote in my notes is, hey Mike, do you remember the good old days in the 80s and 90s when kids raised themselves because parents couldn't be bothered to supervise or pay attention?
Exactly. It's like that clip I sent you the other day of Uncle Baby Billy. Get out of here, nerd. I don't got time for you.
Exactly.
Just kick the kids outside.
Go outside, nerd. Yes, that's exactly true. Like I love that Baby Billy quote, and I remember I responded to you, and I'm like, it's really funny that they used the exact phrasing that my mom used to say.
I know, right? Get out of here, nerd.
So,
Oh, Lord.
We've mentioned it on the podcast a bunch of times in the past, but one of the things that is so interesting about the VHS era, I think, and something that I am continually baffled by, was just how indifferent parents seem to be about like their kids' safety.
Mm-hmm.
And like as a parent in my 40s, my perception of parenting is so different than the one that I had as a kid. Like when I imagine what it would be like to be an adult with kids. And
Yes.
I don't think it's just because I grew up and I have a different, perspective. I think it's because it really is different now. Like parenting is totally different now than when we were kids.
I completely agree.
So, I'm a father of two kids, a teenager and a 12-year-old. So, teenager, and you have a teenager as well.
Yep.
And it's funny now, like we watch old movies together. I mentioned it again on the podcast a bunch of times that I take turns with my kids. Like they'll want to watch a new movie, and it typically is one of the new horror movies. Like my kids are really into stuff that's like paranormal and possession movies, stuff like that. And then I'll show them an old movie, like it's time to watch, what did we watch last time? I don't know, like The Running Man, and like
hell yeah.
RoboCop, and they fucking love Predator. We watched The Ring the other day. That's what it was. They really liked that.
Nice.
And that one fit their vibe because it's so kind of moody and supernatural. But anyway, so it's funny, like we watch movies together, and I'm always shocked at how often Hollywood in that time period focused movies on kids who stay out all night and try to lose their virginity. Like
Yes.
or you go through an entire movie and you maybe see the parent one time, right? You mentioned Never Ending Story. Isn't the dad in like one scene at the beginning, and then he goes to work and we never see him again?
Yep. And I'm pretty sure it's like, this is another thing we saw a lot in the 80s is like the parent who works nights. So you leave the kid home alone, like for all hours. And like This actually I went to go see, I went to Terrors at the drive-in, and it was Fright Night and The Burbs was the double feature. And, it happens in Fright Night, like after Charlie's mom invites Jerry Dandridge in. So now like the vampire can come in whenever he wants. She's then the next night, she's like, oh, I got to start the night shift tomorrow. Oh my God, it's horrible on my complexion, blah, 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 blah. So now Charlie's going to be home alone for the next couple of nights.
Yeah.
And it's like, that was a thing we did in the 80s.
Yeah. I know we're just retreading the same old territory that we've talked about a bunch of times. But yeah, like I remember thinking like, well, of course my parents aren't around. Like, of course I'm a teenager. Like I should be losing my virginity and staying up late and going to parties and like going on dates. And like, not that I was doing all those things, because I was a
Right.
nerd, but like they were totally normal. They were totally normal things,
Right.
And now I can't imagine my 17-year-old and my 12-year-old like having that type of lifestyle. I can't imagine them staying out all night or going to parties and getting drunk. I mean, yeah, they stay out late, they hang out with their friends. Tegan's had like little jobs, like not like a like an actual job, summer job yet, but it's like we're dipping our toe into that. Tegan's learning how to drive, and we're getting there, but I just can't imagine them having that life. And it's not because I'm the dad and I'm like, oh, they're my sweet little babies. It's like, no, I know them pretty well and I know their friends. And I'm like, none of these kids are at the level that our generation was at the same age.
Right. Right.
So I thought the combination of all those ideas is a perfect, lead into putting together some kind of a summer fun story, something that I think, not horror, but could still have some violence in it. Because if we mix the action with one of these like fun summer teen comedies, and then we can kind of lean into this like, well, what if we took one of these situations where kids are always like left alone and they're in these inappropriate and dangerous places, and we just like upped the danger level to see what would happen.
Okay.
So I made you watch Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
You sure did.
And I was like, trust me, it'll be fine.
I think this was the first time, just so the listeners know, that this was the very first time in the entire run of Raised by Rentals where I texted Josh after the movie was over, and I was like, dude, I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. Like I had no idea where we were going. Normally I have a couple of nuggets of ideas and I'm like, okay, I got something we could play with. This time I'm like, I got nothing. I love the movie as it is. I'm totally lost.
Yeah. And I was on the opposite side because I was feeling really overconfident because as I was going through some listicles online of like, top 10 80s and 90s like summer fun movies, nothing was really jumping out at me. Like, yeah, we could do something with Point Break, probably, but it's such a perfect movie. Maybe we should just ruin it sometime. Anyway, and we could probably do something with like Weekend at Bernie's or Adventures in Babysitting, but nothing was jumping out at me until I saw Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. And I think the inherent violence in the title is what grabbed me, because then the first thing I thought was, well, what if her death wasn't an accident? And then I couldn't get it out of my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see where you're going.
So, what I want to do instead of Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead is Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter Got Whacked.
Okay, that sounds fun.
So, let's see if my overconfidence will balance out your complete despair, and we'll come up with something fun.
Oh boy, we always talk about crashing and burning. Let's hope this ain't the one.
I know, right? I secretly have this backup plan of like, when we do the crash and burn episode, we're just gonna really lean into it. You know what I mean? Like, that'll become the topic. Yeah, exactly. Now that we're finally here, let's see what kind of territory we're in.
That's actually kind of brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, well, if it ever happens, we'll find out.
Right.
We'll see if that's today. So let's just talk a little bit about Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. I think it's a classic of I'll say 90s because it came out in 91 or 90. I forget. No, 91. It came out in 91.
Yeah.
But it definitely has that holdover from the 80s with like the fashion and the hair.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a PG-13 teen comedy where of the five main characters who are children, the oldest one is 17, right? So 4 of the kids are barely teenagers, and yet we have a PG-13 rated teen comedy about them. So right off the bat, you know it's the 80s.
Exactly.
So I don't think we need to go through the whole plot of the movie because we're probably going to do that as we go through and figure out, how we're going to improv this change. But if you haven't seen the movie, the basic premise is really simple. It's 5 kids in the suburbs or the boonies of Los Angeles, and they're off school for the summer. Their mom, in incredibly 80s fashion, goes on a vacation by herself to Australia with her boyfriend, leaving her 5 kids alone for the entire summer.
Also, not for nothing, but she seems to come back relatively fast because when they talk about the paychecks, she only got like 2 paychecks, and she's supposed to be paid like every other week. So what happened there?
Yeah, and then they mentioned at the end of the movie, they were like, "Oh, you're not supposed to be back till next week." And yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think that she was only gone for like 4, maybe 5 weeks, but she said it was supposed to be 2 months, so it doesn't add up.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, so the kids at least think that they're being left alone for 2 months, but actually the mom has secretly hired this elderly woman to be their babysitter, who shows up, reveals herself to be an absolute drill sergeant tyrant of a babysitter, and then promptly dies, once again leaving the kids alone for the summer.
Yep. And that's, I got to comment on this. I completely forgot how fucking quick the babysitter dies in this movie. Like, it's in like the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're totally right. It's really fast. But I think that that's a testament to how well written the script is, because this is actually a pretty smart movie. For having like a dumb title and a pretty basic premise, it's a pretty fun movie. And you're right. In the first 20 minutes of the movie or less, they establish almost every major character, the entire family, the babysitter, the fact that they need to get a job, Brian and the clown dog hut, like all of that is in 20 minutes. And I know that because I had to start the movie over today when I watched it. 20 minutes in, I had to start over, and I was like, holy shit, like that's a lot in 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they move quick.
Yeah, which I think it's great because they get, unlike us, they get to the point,
True.
So real quick, we don't have to go through the whole, Boogeyman's Closet style, like litany of the cast and the plot and all that. So, we kind of set up what the plot is. The main character is Christina Applegate, who at the time would have been famous from Married with Children. We most recently talked about her in our vacation episode, when we did Pauly Shore's Thanksgiving Vacation.
I loved that episode, and I loved that movie.
It was a great like remake / requel kind of a thing, like or legacy sequel or whatever it was. Like it was fucking great. So I love Keith Coogan in this movie. He plays Kenny. So just real quick rundown for you who haven't seen the movie. The people that we're going to be talking about are the mom, who, by the way, never gets a name in the script. She's just Mom, which again, it's the 80s. Like fuck the parents. Like just get him out of here.
Absolutely.
So Christina Applegate plays the oldest of the 5 kids, who is Sue Ellen or Swell. Keith Coogan plays Kenny, who's supposed to be 15. And again, like my kid is older than that. And I'm like, no, there's no way. Like Keith Coogan is obviously 20 years old. And like he does a pretty good job of acting like a teenager, but does not look like he's 15.
Right.
Then there's Zach, who is, I don't know, like what, 13 or something like that. He's not really a big character in the movie. And then there's Melissa, who's got to be like 9 or 10, played by the amazing Danielle Harris.
Absolutely. And there's a little Halloween connection. I don't know if you saw that, but on Sue Ellen's desk where she has the pictures of the kids, the picture of Melissa is the same picture they use in Halloween 4 when we see Danielle Harris as like a little kid in the family photo montage.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
I was like, hey, Halloween connection. Look at that.
Hey, there you go. That's cool. So yeah, we have Swell, Kenny, Zach, Melissa, and the youngest is Walter, played by Robert Hy Gorman. And he's one of these kid actors that I swear he was just like in everything in the 80s, but the only movies, like when I looked him up, I'm like, yeah, okay, I saw him in Forever Young, I saw him in Leprechaun. I didn't really recognize anything else, but like I swear he was just in like every TV show.
Oh yeah, no, he popped up all the time. Like he's just one of those recognizable kid actors.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so there's the five of them, the babysitter who is Mrs. Sturak, and then there's some other characters we're going to get to, like I mentioned, Brian, and there's Rose, and like we'll get to that as we go along. I don't want to like front load the characters any more than we already have, because let's just jump right in. We've stalled long enough.
Well, I do wanna comment on a couple of things about the movie. Like number one, I love the animated opening sequence, which is something we just don't see much of anymore. That was something that popped up a lot in the 80s and 90s. Like I always think of Christmas Vacation, with their wonderful animated opening. But there was a lot of films that would do that. They would have like the silly animated, the Pink Panther movies, all of that.
Oh, yeah.
And you just don't see it often. And it was specifically that early 90s animation, like the shit you would see on liquid television. Like it just,
yeah,
it hit me in the nostalgia so hard. I'm like, oh, fuck, I love it. Also, I got to comment, I used to have the biggest crush on Christina Applegate when I was a kid. I was like, oh my gosh, she's so pretty. And it's funny watching it now. I'm just like, yeah, no, I can see why I had such a crush on her.
Yeah.
Very pretty girl.
I think every straight kid in America had a crush on, was it Kelly from Married with Children?
Yep. But there are a couple lines in here that dude, I was like, first of all, I couldn't believe they were in there. And I like in a PG-13 movie. Where Rose makes the comment to Swell where she's like, go have a bath, put some cucumber slices over your eyes. She's like, I don't have any cucumbers. She's like, oh, Swell, every gal over 25 should have a cucumber in the house. And I'm like, oh my God. Like,
yeah.
Okay. But then she makes the comment, she's talking about when she went away and she goes, have you ever had a 48-hour orgasm? I'm like, that sounds awful. Like,
right?
Maybe I'm too old, but Jesus Christ. I feel like you'd end up looking like you opened the Ark of the Covenant. Like you would just be.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's awful. And then the last thing is I know we didn't talk about them yet, but the characters of Gus and Carolyn.
Oh yeah.
First of all, they're like the perfectly hateable early 90s, late 80s villains in a comedy. They're just like those. They're as hateable as they can be. They're snarky. They're just dicks. They're always up to some kind of shenanigans. But look at Carolyn when she smiles and tell me she doesn't look like a female Ace Ventura. Not Jim Carrey, but specifically Jim Carrey playing Ace Ventura. That like the front lip or the top lip like kind of up over the teeth, like the overly toothy smile with the head tilt. The whole time I'm like, I just feel like she's going to go Bumblebee Tuna. Bumblebee Tuna. Like it was driving me nuts throughout the whole movie.
That's funny. I don't think I noticed that.
It was driving me nuts.
Well, and it's funny because you mentioned Gus, and I had a similar reaction watching the movie today, and then seeing Tegan, who sat down for a little while, and there was one of the scenes where Gus was like really, really heavily hitting on Swell, and like the character is 17, so it feels really inappropriate and gross, and yes. He's like cheating on Rose, but who knows, like he's just a smarmy, disgusting guy. He's such a stereotype of that like 80s businessman, and it's like you could get away with like sexual harassment in the office,
right.
But he was just such a cartoon that it was almost a little silly because he laughed all the time at like his own dumb little jokes, and I don't know, there was just something about the way he played the character was just very elastic and like over the top, and I was like, it makes it worse. It's almost, I think it was probably a good choice for him to do it that way, the actor, because it made the character seem so much more skeevy and disgusting.
Oh, totally agree. Like I couldn't stand his character, and it's like. Again, with what is it with the villains in this movie and the overly toothy smiles? Like he kept doing the like, and like his like lips would open up and just show his chiclets.
Like, yeah, but except that they were pretty yellow because
oh yeah, that was the other thing I noticed is how many people had like super yellow teeth in this movie.
Right, and again, going back to that idea of like kids are basically just treated as if they're like little adults because Swell is smoking, Kenny at 15 is like drinking and getting high in like every scene that he's in before he has his like, young life crisis change,
Right.
And it's like everybody is, you know what it is? It's like I feel like kids used to complain all the time that parents didn't treat them like adults, but now in hindsight we realize that parents were treating them like adults, and that was the problem.
Yes, exactly.
Oh man. So yeah,
Oh.
it's a great movie. It has a great cast of nobody really really huge except for maybe Christina Applegate, but just a lot of really solid actors. David Duchovny and Josh Charles and a few other people that are recognizable. But yeah, so let's just kind of dive in. I think we've set the stage, and again, if you haven't seen the movie, it would really really help if you did before we kept going because we're going to spoil the shit out of the whole thing. But of course, if you have seen it, hopefully you follow along with us because what I want to do based on that title of Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter Got Whacked, and the idea that, well, what if her death wasn't natural causes or a heart attack? Like, what if it was intentional, and what does that change about the movie? So just peeling the layer back a little bit, or peeling the curtain back a little bit, before we talked, it was like, well, what do we want to do? Do we want to do like a remake or like a sequel, or do we want to tell the same story but put in some kind of big action blockbuster scenes, where for some reason there's like a missile launcher and a jet, or whatever. But what we thought would probably be fun is, well, let's add some stuff to the movie, but try to do it as if like it's the same movie, but we're just going to add some stuff to it. We're going to add some elements in so that we don't have to like drastically change the plot. Mm-hmm. So with that said, if our babysitter is going to get whacked, probably by criminals. So we need to figure out, okay, let's introduce some kind of criminal element, some antagonists into the movie. And then, why does she get whacked? What is she doing? Did she rat on somebody? Is she on the lam? Like, what is it? Like, my first thought is she ran off with some cartel's money or jewels or something like that, and she runs off and she takes this babysitting job in the middle of nowhere because she's gonna like hide out for the summer. So what do you think so far?
Nice. Okay, yeah, no, that right there. Okay, I feel like we could work with that. So okay, so is she involved with this with these people, or does she rob them somehow? Like, I feel like almost like she needs to be involved, like because she's kind of a dick in the movie. Yeah, so like, and I mean, I've worked with people like this who play the sweet little grandmother role, and then behind closed doors, they're just foul human beings. Yes. And it's like, I feel like that would fit. Like, oh, she's playing the sweet little grandma, but really she's part of an international crime cartel or something.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Okay, let's go with that. Let's have it. And I like that you mentioned international, and I had kind of said like money or jewels. So let's go with. And again, I feel like it's very much of the era that they're jewel thieves.
Yes. They stole the diamonds.
Exactly. It's like it's Reservoir Dogs or something, And I always question that too, like in this economy, like, are jewels really worth that much on like the black market? I mean, they mark them up in like the jewelry stores, like in the mall, but like it's kind of a controlled industry. Like I always wondered, like, why diamonds?
Yeah, like how do you get rid of those? Like how do you turn that into cash? Like,
yeah, I think that there's even a line in I think it's in Reservoir Dogs where it was either Marcellus Wallace or Nice Guy Eddie. One of them says like, "Oh, I don't know no one who can move no diamonds." Anyway, so yeah, okay, so let's go with that. So let's have it that she's the mother of one of the like goons or the soldiers in the gang, not like the boss's mom, but she's the mom of one of these guys who gets involved, and or maybe she was the wife of like a top guy. I like this better. She's the wife of some top guy, and some other guy like stepped in to like take over as like the boss of the crew, and she feels like she's getting passed over because god damn it, like she was there leading the crew with her husband or whatever. So she says fuck it and takes off with the jewels after their last heist. Something like that.
I like it. I like it. Okay, so all right, so we got this this crime cartel, or these thieves, these jewel thieves, and she is, like you said, she's the wife of like the ex leader, or like did he get killed or something?
Yeah, let's have it be that the boss died, and maybe he was just old and he died, and
Oh
his
yeah, 'cause she's pretty old, so yeah.
yeah. What if it was like his chief guy, his like top capo, captain or whatever, steps into the leadership role, but she's like the matriarch of the crew who's been around forever, and it just kind of feels like she's being pushed aside, and maybe the new boss is a dick who literally was just like, get out of here, grandma, go live in some retirement, community or whatever.
Right. Okay, yeah, no, I dig it. I dig it.
Okay, so exactly that. So, and of course, her name isn't like really Mrs. Sturrock, but it doesn't really matter what it is. So she goes to this job, this babysitting job. Kenny at one point mentions that their house is like in the boonies, and we see Swell drive into Los Angeles, getting stuck in traffic. She mentions she has to leave at 5 o'clock in the morning to get to work on time. So they could live far enough outside of the city where you have this crew of thieves, and maybe they're from like way down in like San Diego or someplace further south. So she's going to go up, to like the valley or whatever in Los Angeles, and hide out, take this job, take on the role of like the nice little old Mrs. Sturrock. And she knows that there's no adults at this house. She's out there by herself, and all she has to do is keep these like fucking little rugrats in line long enough, for her to make some connection with some like rival gang so she can get snuck out of town or whatever. We don't necessarily need to know all those details, because we're going to get the story from someone else, because she's dead.
Right. Okay, so this is almost going to work like we're sticking an entire other movie into this movie, where it's like, we're going to have all this crime shit going on behind the scenes of the rest of the flick. I kind of dig this.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that'll work out really well. Because I was worried about changing the plot a lot. Again, originally it was like, well, let's put in some kind of like action with explosions and car chases, but you would have to change the entire plot to do that.
Right.
Everything beyond the point where the babysitter dies and the kids lose the money would have to just be a brand new story that we made up. And I wasn't sure that I wanted to do that. So yeah, I think this idea is better, is let's just add these elements in where we have this like side story going on. And it would be really cool if Swell and the other kids were just oblivious to it. Like their story just continues.
Right. I like that.
Okay. So let's put the crew into the movie. We mentioned them being like jewel thieves. I don't think it should be like an Italian mafia. It should just be, whatever, like a bunch of like random dudes from LA.
This is the early 90s. So it is the stereotypical Hollywood gang. So you're going to have like the gruff old guy leading the show. Like, remember like Adventures in Babysitting, where you had like the pissed off old dude in the trench coat? Like you're going to have like some type of like mafioso leader type, and then of course you have to have the bumbling henchman. So you're gonna have like, and it's the Hollywood thing, so you're gonna have the Asian guy, the white guy, and the black guy. Like that's just how Hollywood did it in the 90s. And they would play like, you'd have the one guy who was the tech guy, and the one guy who was like the plan guy, and the other guy who was the fucking moron. Like that's just how they did it. So
exactly. Yeah.
I feel like that would fit.
Oh, absolutely. And the gruff boss, he either has to be like the fast-talking Quentin Tarantino character who has all the best lines in the movie, or he has to have a like Eastern European accent for some reason.
Oh my. Okay, hold up. Here, so no, we're gonna cast this one. I feel like we're okay. Not normally, we normally don't cast, but picture Udo Kier as.
Yes.
I'm just like, I can picture him as like, he's like, you have failed to bring me the diamonds again. Like, just I can hear it in my head.
Yes, I love that. I think that's amazing. Oh man, where is he from? we don't necessarily need to say it, but he is. Oh, so he's from Germany. So yeah, we could just say that it was like a the German crew or whatever in L.A. But yeah, to your point, they have these like the random henchman,
Yes.
like the random Asian guy. He like works for the German mob or whatever.
and of course, like he's the one that's like trying to keep the shit together. Like he's following the boss's orders, and then you got Tweedledee and Tweedledum being the other guys that are just like fucking up all the time.
Nice. Okay. So I have an idea for one of those henchmen, but before we get ahead of ourselves, let's stop and name these guys real quick so we can jump into the action.
Okay.
So our boss, so we're gonna pattern him after Udo Kier. And he's German guy. We could go for a real stereotypical German name. Like they used Hans in Die Hard,
Yes. Hans and Franz.
Exactly. There's Gustav and Johann or just Carl,
I kind of like Johann, but
yeah,
I mean
Johann.
they'd be
Okay.
calling him the boss anyway, so
Yeah, exactly. Call him Johann, like Bremberg or something, but it doesn't really matter what the last name is. Okay, and then the Asian guy. So here's an idea for one of the henchmen. I think would be funny. The Asian guy is going to be like the one who has his head screwed on, like the one who actually knows what's going on, is like a competent criminal, and the other two
Right.
guys are just like the muscle, who couldn't think for themselves if the other guy wasn't around,
Right. Exactly. They're the stereotypical henchmen.
Yeah. I think it would be funny if one of them was like really into Asian culture and it just pissed off the actual Asian guy the whole time. So like,
Yes.
and it's the 80s, so it's like the era of like The Last Dragon and stuff like that. I mean, it's a couple of years later, but it would be funny if like you had this like big black dude, but who was wearing like a Bruce Lee pants and like had like a headband on with like Japanese characters or something on it, and he was always trying to fight with nunchucks, but like doesn't really know how to use them.
Keeps hitting himself in the face by accident.
Yeah. And then every time he pulls out like a shooting star, and the Asian guy just smacks it out of his hand, like, cut that shit out.
Get your gun, damn it.
At one point, like he's gonna try to sneak into the house or whatever, and he'll put on like a ninja mask, and the Asian dude's just gonna rip it off and be like, not a fucking ninja, Tyrone.
Oh my god. Oh, that's fucking funny.
Oh,
Oh, Lord.
and to make matters worse, like I mentioned generic Asian culture, but he's like a ninja or whatever, like so the black guy's really into like Japanese stuff, and that's what he's seen in movies. But like the Asian dude's actually Korean, so it pisses him off even more.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like freaking Khan in King of the Hill, where every time someone brings up like he's like, I'm Laotian.
Nice. Okay, so let's just call this guy, and we can't give him. We have to give him like an American sounding name because he's totally like second generation or whatever. So
Oh yeah, he'd be like Pete.
Yeah. Pete. Yeah, let's go with Pete.
It's always like Pete or Dan or Mike or something. It's like it's always a very common name.
Well, yeah, you get that from a lot of like children of immigrants. Like my father-in-law, Christina's dad, is first generation born in the States. His whole family is from Germany and the Ukraine. Like even his older siblings were born over there, and so his legal first name is Jimmy. It's not James, it's Jimmy, because when his parents came over to America, they wanted to give him the most American name they could think of. But they didn't realize that Jimmy was like a nickname.
Right.
So speaking of Jimmy, let's make this white guy named Jimmy, because why not?
Okay. I was actually going to say Connor for the white dude. I felt like
No. Okay, and I'm sorry to all the Connors listening to this podcast, but as soon as you said Connor, and I'm thinking California, they're in, L.A., it's got to be like the Tony Hawk looking surfer dude,
Oh, of course. Of course.
I mentioned Tony Hawk because like back in like Gleaming the Cube, how he had that like wave of blonde hair that just like floated in front of his face, Yes.
That's perfect.
He's wearing like a backwards visor, and like he always has flip flops on. Like,
Oh my god. Yeah, no, that is the perfect character for him or the perfect description for this character, I should say.
Okay, cool. So I like these guys. So we've got Johan and apparently his pretty poor tasted henchman because he's got Pete, Connor, and Tyrone.
Nice. All right.
Okay.
So we got our 3 henches. All right. So, all right. Well, okay. Then we should start the movie the same way that it starts. In the actual film, where we meet the kids, meet the family, find out that the mom's going away to Australia. The house is a fucking mess. Like it looks like someone set off a bomb in that house. And again, with that many kids and being a single mom, I totally get it. But so we're gonna have that same setup. She hires the babysitter. The babysitter comes in playing the old sweet little grandma, and then once mom leaves, she turns into the drill sergeant that we saw in the film. Now, do we want to follow the blueprint perfectly where she keels over early, or do we want to have like a couple days of her being a total tyrant while the henchmen track her down?
I kind of like the idea of introducing the death as like a surprise, because obviously from the title of the movie, everybody who saw this, back in 1991 knew that the babysitter was going to die. Like, she was dead on the movie poster.
Right.
I think it would be interesting if we go through that whole sequence. She keels over dead. The only thing that we should change is that when she was in her room, when Swell walks in, she turns the chair around to see, that she's laying there, like, unconscious. She used to have a teacup in her hand, like she fell asleep drinking a cup of tea, and then when she falls out of the chair, like it spills everywhere, and just kind of like point out the fact that, like, oh, she's drinking that tea. Like, don't miss that clue, everybody.
Right. Okay.
Because I'm thinking like that's how she would get whacked, is that she gets poisoned. And yeah, I'm not totally against the idea of maybe having a scene where maybe some mysterious person like sneaks into the house and like, puts something in the tea, and then Swell finds her dead. But I'm not sure if we want to reveal it before or after.
Let's go with after. So yeah, so we'll do the movie the same way it did. So, or same way it went. So mom leaves, she's off to Australia. The kids are ready to have this great summer, but now we have this drill sergeant at home who's like, she's got the money that mom left for him, just like, in the original movie. She's being a total asshole, making him wear name tags and shit, yelling at him, the TV rots your brain, all that stuff. And then, they eventually, the next day, they find her dead in her room, just like you said. But yes, close up on the tea, show that, like, yes, this is important. So now they're like, well, fuck, what are we going to do? And just like in the actual movie, they decide to pack her in a trunk and drop her off at the funeral home, not knowing that she had all of their money. So now they got no food for the rest of the summer. What are they going to do? Sue Ellen has to get a job. So while all of that's happening, I think we should show at some point during this, we need to show the boss and the henchmen trying to track somebody down. Maybe we don't know that it's the babysitter yet. Maybe it's like we do that cutaway where we see like the henchman talking to Johan. He's like, we have to find her. We have to try. She has the diamonds, doing like the over the top boss thing, like slamming papers down on the desk, like pissed off, So we know there's this other threat going on, but maybe we don't know exactly that Sturak is attached to them yet.
Yeah, that makes sense too, because it could be the mom as well, who's like going off to Australia for some reason,
Oh, I didn't even think of that wrinkle. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I did. That's awesome. I just thought of that now. I like this idea that you said of like, well, maybe we can string that along at least a little bit. So what I'm thinking is, let's introduce the first element of these guys in the same sequence where Swell goes into the bedroom and finds the babysitter dead. Right before that, we saw Kenny come home. He gets dropped off by his friends. He's got, like a potted plant of weed, and, he's clearly really high or drunk or something. And so how about when he gets dropped off by his friends, like drive off, maybe there's another car like down the road that was like parked, and the car turns its headlights on and like speeds away. Like, oh shit, like there's another car. Like, let's get out of here, boys. You know what I mean? But Kenny notices just for a second. He looks at the car. The camera sees the car drive away, but he's so fucking high, he just continues to walk into the house. So all we see is that little split of like, what was that car doing there?
What if what if that's not when he noticed it? Like we see him go in, maybe we pan over and see the car, right? And we see when he's putting the the potted pot plant in his window, that's when the headlights turn on. He's like, "What?" and like looks over, and he's like, like he sees his friends driving away, but also then sees this other car turn the headlights on, and that's why he drops his pot plant, which then of course distracts him from seeing the car, because he's like, "Oh shit!" like starts laughing. So which is exactly what happened in the movie, but now we see why he dropped it was because he got distracted. So trying to like squeeze this into the movie that exists. So
yeah, no, I love that. This idea that we're just like lacing the two stories together without really changing much, just like little details.
Right.
At some point they'll have to converge, but I think it would be fun to see how far we can get before we have to do that.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So then we go back with the whole scene. Swell finds the babysitter. Like they're like, "What are we gonna do, Kenny?" Blah blah blah. Oh, better yet, she goes into Kenny's room and she's like, "Kenny, come downstairs. You got to see this." And then we cut to them in the bedroom with the old lady, and they're like, "What are we gonna do?" Before that happens, like after she tells Kenny, "You got to come downstairs," we cut away to that car that's driving away pulls up to like some like random like gas station with a payphone and gets out and like calls the boss or whatever. And maybe I don't know if we see the other end of that phone call, but like do a little something of like, "I think I found her, boss," just something like that. Again, I don't know exactly what he's going to say, but like let's just kind of show the audience who was in that car and establish this like secondary POV of like the crew, right?
Okay. Well, are they going to find her? Because I thought they whacked her.
Oh yeah, shit, you're right. Yeah, so forget what I said about him finding her. It might be more of like
it's done.
Yeah, exactly. Something that simple, like and then so we cut back into the regular movie, the whole sequence where they go to get rid of her, and the next day when Kenny's like, "There's no money in here. Like, what the fuck?" Like when they're in the car, realizing that the money's gone. Maybe at the same time, we cut over to that goon that was on the phone, and he's getting yelled at, by his boss, or some other guy from the crew off camera, where they're like, "What do you mean you didn't get the jewels, Connor? What the fuck?"
Okay, here I got an idea. Let's back it up for a second. So before the scene where they find her dead, so before Kenny comes home and all that, we're gonna have that scene where we cut over to this completely other set of characters, like Johan and the the henchman. Maybe Johan's on the phone and he gets off the phone. He's like, "We found her. Like, we know where she is. We know she has the jewels," like that type of thing. Like, we don't know who they're talking about, who these people even are. But so like we've established that they know where this person is, whoever it is that they're looking for. So then like we do everything that we said, where the car, we see the car pulling away, we find the babysitter dead, yada yada yada. But that scene where he calls the boss, like where Connor calls the boss, maybe we see like in the car behind him, like Tyrone and or maybe Pete's the one calling. So we got Connor and Tyrone going through a suitcase. Like they stole something from her room, and they're like rifling through it, like pulling like like old lady scarves and shit out of the suitcase, like throwing them, and then like have them get like, yeah, no, we got her things. Like it's got to be here. And then like we hear like Connor be like, "Pete, they're not here." And have them be like, "What do you mean they're not there?" And then have the boss be like, "I better not have heard what I think I heard." Something like that, where it's like, now we've introduced the fact that whatever it is they're looking for, like these jewels, they're not there. Maybe they're back at the house where the old lady died. Like, because now we're putting the pieces together.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. And we should do that before the scene that I mentioned where they're in the car the next day, Kenny and Swell, and they realize the money's gone. So we kind of like have these back-to-back scenes of like whatever the crew was there to get, they didn't find, it's gone. And then now the money's also gone. And of course, Swell and Kenny reached the conclusion that, well, she must have had the money on her and we can't go and get it now. So hopefully that will tell the audience, haha, she probably had the jewels with her too,
Right.
But the crew doesn't know that. So maybe we cut to a scene where we have them getting chewed out by Johan, or maybe not even chewed out. Maybe he's just very quietly explaining to them how stupid they are in this like really icily threatening voice, just to kind of put them back on the case. Like, you guys fucked up, go get the shit. And then I don't know exactly how the scenes fit together, but at some point we have to show the crew going back to the house and either trying to go in to look, or maybe they just case the joint a little bit. We see them go back to the house and like see the kids inside. Maybe they hear them arguing or something. And of course, the lady's car is there too, so like they might want to try to search that. So I'm trying to think, if this is the next day, will they still have the car? Like, help me figure out the timeline here, right? Because in the movie, they go from the money's gone to they go out that night and like spend the last of their money on like pizza and arcade games, and then the car gets stolen.
Right. So all right. So we do everything like I said, where they kill the old lady. The kids end up dropping the old lady off at the funeral home and unknowingly with the money. Obviously, we find out that the jewels are not in her belongings. So the audience, like you said, is going to think that maybe the jewels were on the old lady. But we can even have we see the jewel thieves like staking out outside the house when the kids come home. We see them screech into the like or the driveway with the car. They run inside, start ransacking Mr. X's room looking for the money, and maybe we see the jewel thieves out there being like, that's her car, I bet it's in the false bottom in the trunk. Like, have them say something
nice.
Like they know it's got to be in there, that has to be where she hid it. But before they can get out of the car, we see the kids come back outside and get into the car. Like, what are we going to do? Like, they're freaking out. And then they drive off to, wherever they end up. And then they end up at the, what is it? The Clown, or what was it called? Clown Dog?
No, she gets the job at Clown Dog, but there's
they go to a pizza place. That's right.
Yeah. They go to this pizza place, and it's like, again, it must be the last of their money, right? Because
right.
I remember Swell comes out of the restaurant at the end with Kenny and was like, that's it, Kenny, that's the last of our money. And he's like, help, please donate, anybody, and that's what happens right before the car gets stolen. So that was before she goes to get a job, right?
Yes, that was before. So what we could do is we could see them take off. Now let's have like we'll see Connor and the others be like, all right, trail them, and we see them like following after them. So maybe we see them like following them around town for a little while, just like an additional scene of them driving around, and like the kids trying to figure out what the hell they're gonna do. Well, now we have like we have them at the pizza joint, and they're like, well, we got to get in the car, we got to break in the car, and maybe like Connor, the dumb one, is like, well, if we go like we're dressed now, like, won't people recognize us? Like, won't they be able to spot who it is? And like Tyrone's be like, yeah, we need disguises. Cut to the drag queens stealing the car.
Oh, that's awesome. And Pete's got to be the one dressed up as Liza Minnelli.
And, of course.
We got to do like this fast cut to like Pete's face, and he's like, I fucking hate you guys. I can't believe I'm doing this,
Right.
And then you see, Connor is like Marilyn Monroe, and Tyrone is the other one that was kind of in the back. We didn't really see who it was. But of course, Connor's going to be like adjusting his like fake boobs, like, oh man, trust me, this will work. I'm a master of disguise.
Yes. I don't know, like the whole thing, you kept talking about Point Break, and all I keep thinking is The Mask, so it's like the drag queen thing works perfectly.
Oh my God. That's awesome. So they go and they steal the car. That whole sequence we see, where Kenny's like, those drag queens stole our car, and
Liza Minnelli.
And again, it's hard to like know like scene by scene by scene like how these things all happen in sequence. But at some point around the same time that Swell agrees to go get a job, before that, we cut away to see the drag queens pull in somewhere. They get out of the car, they pull off the wigs and shit, and then they start like ripping the car seats out, and we see them come to the realization that like, damn it, it's not here. Where could it be? Like, it must be back at the house, and then we cut back to the house and we see like, flipping a pizza to see who gets a job.
Yes. I love this. I love that it's just like kind of popping in the middle of the movie. So we're gonna do all the same stuff. Like Sue Ellen gets the job at what was it, GEW or GW something? I forget the name of the place.
GAW, General Apparel West.
That's what it was. GAW. I knew there were some initials. I couldn't remember what. So we do that. We introduce, Carolyn and Gus and whatever the hell David Duchovny's character's name was, I forget. So we introduce all those assholes and like the threat of, oh, she's a 17-year-old that's working in this big industry, and we have the bitch who wants to get her fired, like that. We have all of that. While that's going on, we need to cut back to like Johann flipping fuck, just losing his shit that his henchmen still don't have the diamonds. And maybe we can introduce like there's a buyer coming. We need to get these freaking diamonds now. Like we need them. Otherwise, all of us are in danger. So then, we cut back, we see, we do the back and forth with Sue Ellen's story with Brian, like, she's got this little love story going. And maybe every time, like when they're out on the date, like doing the Grunion run, maybe we like cut to like Tyrone and Connor with like binoculars watching them. And,
Yeah.
like, Pete's looking through the clown dog car, just like, it's got to be here somewhere. She's got to have a purse, something like they're just like, so all the stuff that we see in the movie is happening, but we get these little like side vignettes of like the henchmen trying to like go unseen.
Yeah, like in the background. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. And okay, and so of course at some point they have to. Well, first of all, during the sequence where we really get to see the boss like really go at them, he's got to, like you said, mention the buyer, but he's also has to say something to explain to the audience who the old lady was. Like, we told it to each other, but at this point, he's going to be like, the old boss, I can't think of the old boss's name. Let's say the old boss's name is Udo. Fuck it, right? So he's like, when Papa Udo died, like I tried to put this, cow out to pasture, but the bitch ran off with the jewels from the last heist, whatever,
right.
Something like, something like that in his his icy German accent that I can't do. And then of course at some point, during the sequences where Swell gets the job and goes on the date with Brian, I don't know where the timeline fits exactly of like when they get the petty cash money, but the point is that while the kids are all kind of doing their thing, we're going to see the crew go back to the house and be like, okay, we checked the lady's suitcase, we checked the car, we tried to, to scope out if one of these kids, maybe they're trying to scope out if like, Swell was going to go, cash in the jewel somewhere, but nope, she's just going on a date. So it can't be that. Okay. So now like we can't avoid it. We got to get into that house, but these fucking kids are always here. So, they have to find, some way of sneaking into the house so they can look around without being noticed.
Yes, exactly. And like we can even play that up, like where we see like after the kids steal the petty cash money from Suelle, and we have like Walter buys that home entertainment center. Like which leads into him getting his leg broke because he climbs up on the roof where Kenny's not watching him, yada yada. Then of course that leads to Kenny's like young life crisis, as we discussed. So, but what if the TV works perfectly? Like, what if Walter gets it all set up and he sits down, he's like, wow, and he like turns it on and he's flicking through channels, but we see like the henchman watching through the window, like, we got to check the house. Like, everyone else is gone because like Melissa's at baseball practice, Zach is out with his moon goddess that he called her, and Sue Ellen's at work. So it's just Kenny and Walter, and Kenny's obviously stoned up in his room. So they're trying to get Walter out. So what if they like go and fuck with the cords for the antenna, and then this is when Walter's like, Kenny, something's wrong with the antenna, and he's like, oh, figure it out, or whatever he said. I forget, I can't remember. But then we see Walter like climb up onto the roof. Meanwhile, the henchmen are like doot 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 and sneak inside and just start like ransacking the house, like, because at this point the house is still a fucking mess. So it's not going to be obvious that they were there.
Yeah, nobody would even notice. That's funny. Real quick, before we get any further, let's back up. And I like this idea that when they start spending the petty cash money, what if we see the crew? What if we see Pete like looking through binoculars? Maybe he sees the delivery truck drive up with like the entertainment center, and then we see the POV from Walter answering the door, and it's like, oh yeah, bring it in, set it up over there. We cut back to Pete with the binoculars, and he's like, these kids must have found it. Like, where else do they get money to buy all that high tech gear?
Oh, perfect. So now they're racing to be like, we got to salvage what we can, because if they're spending them, like, what do we do? Like, so now they're trying to get whatever they can because they think that, which is of course going to lead to a big showdown. I love it. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I like this idea. Like, during the sequence, they like sneak into the house. Kind of a little bit of a slapstick comedic, element where Walter gets up to like go outside, and we see Tyrone in the kitchen just dive behind the kitchen island and try to hide. So
And we could
um,
have like once Walter falls off the roof, and Kenny's like, "Oh my God, Walter!" and we see him run down the stairs to go outside. Maybe we see like Connor go to like run away from the stairs, and he fucking slips on one of those giant stacks of newspaper, so he just goes like clattering off screen as like Kenny runs past him out the front door.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And like, okay, and then at the same time, like Tyrone was in the kitchen, he dived behind the island. What if he got out and like, he went outside because he was going to sneak around the back and see where the kid went. And then when Walter's on the roof and he knocks like the tile off, the tile falls and like hits Tyrone on the head.
Yes.
This is awesome. So of course, like when Walter does fall off the house and Kenny opens the window, you just see Tyrone and Connor both like whoop 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 in opposite directions around the side of the house. They run back, to where Pete's chilling with the binoculars, and of course it's like, oh shucks, we'll have to try again tomorrow or whatever.
Yeah. Or he'll just be like, "Fucking idiots!" Like just all pissed off.
Oh, I can't remember. It must happen before this? The scene where the famous like the dishes are done, man sequence, right? Where Kenny like throws the plates with his friends and like shoots them with a shotgun. Again, the timing is mixed up in my head, but like that would be the perfect situation where you see Connor and Tyrone like sneaking around the back of the house, like they're gonna jimmy the door open, and then they just hear the shotgun blast, and they're like, "Oh shit! They know we're here."
Jesus! They just take off running, diving behind bushes and shit.
Yeah, exactly. They're talking to each other like, how the hell do they know we're here? Like, is this a crew? Like, did Miss Mama Sturak or whatever like take up with another crew out here? Like, what the fuck?
Oh, I love it. Because that was definitely before Walter Falls, because that was when Kenny was still, being a dumb stoner, and like after Walter Falls is when he's just like, I gotta clean my act up, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So I love that. So we can have a couple of sequences like that. Like we said, the whole Grunion Run scene where they're like, trying to search through the truck behind the scenes. Maybe we could even like slip a couple other scenes in there, like, when Sue Ellen's at her job, like maybe Connor dresses up he dresses up like the flower delivery guy, and like he brings in the flowers and like sets them down, and like, while she's not in her office, because remember, he puts them in there, or the flowers are there when Sue Ellen comes back. So maybe like he's in there and he's like looking through her desk, and then like we hear the door open and he like climbs out the window. So he's like holding onto the side of the building like, oh fuck, what do I do?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I love this. There's all kinds of cool opportunities. Like, I don't know if the timing works, but like as an example, there's a sequence later on, like toward the end of the movie, where Carolyn and David Duchovny, Bruce, that was his character's name, they sneak into Swell's office and they realize that she had put receipts into the petty cash, but her purse was there. Like, she had left her purse there. This might be too late in the movie to still have people sneaking around in the building, but it would be funny if like the crew snuck into the building to break into her office, only to have Carolyn and Bruce show up the same night, and then they break in, so it's like, fuck, every time they try to get in there, something goes wrong.
I think that's perfect. I think maybe they're just like, they never got a chance to like fully search her office, and they figure like, she's clearly the leader of the family because she's the one working for a living, that type of thing. So it's like, well, it's not at the house, it's not, because that was late in the movie, and at this point they've tried to search the house. There was gunshots, the kid fell off the roof, like all these things happen. So so maybe they're trying at the office, and then like to your point, they're in there searching. We could even have them like searching through her purse. Maybe her purse wasn't on the desk. Maybe it was in one of the drawers, and they took it out and set it there, and they were rifling through it. And then we hear someone approaching, and they scatter and hide. So when Carolyn and Bruce come in, like we could even do a thing like where we just pan the camera over slightly and see like Connor's boots sticking out from under one of the curtains, like he's standing, and then like we see Tyrone like cuddled up behind the filing cabinet, and like just
Well, of course, we would know it's Connor because it wouldn't be boots; it would be flip flops.
That's true. That's right.
Yeah, this is
Oh
great,
god.
you know, and yeah, I don't think we have to detail every single one of these, and we talked a little bit about, you know, some of the interactions between like Pete and Tyrone, and you know, so we can work all of these into these, you know, sort of slapstick sequences where they're just trying repeatedly to like break into this house, and there's a little bit of like a Home Alone type of comedy to it.
Yep.
You know, not the the murder house of fun that Kevin builds at the end of the movie, but like all these sequences before that, when you see the wet bandits, you know, try to figure out, you know, if he's home alone or if they can break
Yep.
into the house, you know, all those sort of like failed attempts to rob the McAllister's house.
Well, and I think we could have even like, and we don't got to go through all of it, but we could even do stuff like when like after the thing with Walter, like once the kids are starting to clean up their act, and we see Kenny like watching Melissa at baseball practice, where he's like, "That's my girl." Maybe like
Mhm.
when he leans over and says, "That's my girl," the guy sitting in the seat next to him is actually Connor in a disguise, and he's
Yeah.
just like, mm-hmm, you know, just kind of nods.
He's like he's dressed up as like a soccer mom or something
Yeah.
again, you know.
Oh shit.
Oh man, that'd be funny. Yeah, that is awesome. So I think what we need to do after all of these like failed attempts, and maybe I'm rushing things, but I feel like these guys are gonna get frustrated. It's just they're
Oh yeah.
constantly being you know, interrupted or stopped, or you know, they just can't get into the house to pull it off. So eventually they just have to be like, fuck it, like we're just going in there. I don't care. And I think it would be fun if we brought these two storylines together and made our most major change at the big climax of Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, where there's that big like fashion party at Swell's house.
Yes, totally agree. Like that should be the thing. Like so we just like in the regular movie, you know, Sue Ellen's trying to save the company, has this whole fashion show planned. They're going to do it at the house. That you know we get our montage because you got to have a montage of them cleaning and doing all
Mhm.
that. Meanwhile, like while the montage is happening, we could see like you know Johan and his henchmen. Maybe like Johan gets off the phone and he looks at them and he's like, "They're coming tomorrow. We have to get
Mhm.
this tonight." Like
Oh
it's just
yeah.
like one of those. So like now it's like, and then we see like maybe Pete's just like fuck it, and like we see him cock a gun. Like he's just like, "We're taking those jewels. Like we're getting these back." Um, and that's split in with like you know we see the kids like washing the pool and painting the porch.
Yeah, and this will be a fun sequence to put in where when Kenny gets his like stoner friends to come over and help, you see them in the montage, and
Mhm.
you know maybe at one point, you know, Kenny like accidentally brushes shoulders with one of his friends, and like, you know, he just turns to look at him for a second, and then you see Connor with like this really bad like fake wig on and like a fake, you know, like stubble painted onto his face, and he's got like a ripped up, you know, jean vest on or something. He's like pushing a broom, and you see him look at Kenny real quick and then like look away real fast and like, you know, sweep away really quickly, and then Kenny just shakes his head like, oh man, too much of the stuff, you know. Or maybe this is where he decides, where he's like, oh man, I really got to lay off the pot.
Right. Like just shakes his head and goes back to cooking. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, so
Oh man.
we have this whole sequence where Swell like sets up the fashion show. She rescues the family from their financial troubles by making up all of these like fake receipts for petty cash, which by the way, I didn't understand until I was an adult that that's how she put the money back, is that she didn't put the money back. She put in receipts that she drew with like crayon in the box,
Exactly.
which is kind of perfect. Like she just like hired her own family. And
Right.
yeah, so then the big night of the fashion show is the night when everything comes together. Because remember, in the real movie, there's the big fashion show, and Zach like finally breaks up with his girlfriend. There's a new girlfriend. Nicole, Swell's friend, comes back from Europe to be a model, and like, you know, catches Kenny's eye, and it's like everyone's having this big happy ending. Everything's happening at the same night. But then Brian shows up, and the mom comes home. And don't forget, this is also the same night that earlier on, or maybe it's the next day, but Carolyn and Bruce found that ID and like photocopied it and brought it to Rose. So my point is that like whatever, for whatever reason, like the stars are aligning on this one night and everything's gonna happen.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. So all right. So what we should have to, but we should still have it play out the way that it was playing out, where it's like the fashion show is going wonderfully, everyone's excited, everyone's happy. Carolyn and Bruce try to do the thing where it's like, she's only 17, and Rose is just like, get a fucking life, Carolyn. Just kind of shoots her down. It's like, oh, how dare she? All of that. But we also see like the henchmen and Johan like coming into the party, and like maybe they're looking around, like they're just kind of like mingling at first, like there's all these people here. Why are all these people here? They're kind of looking around, and then Mom comes home, and of course there's that panic. Or no, I'm sorry. First Brian starts his speech. Mm-hmm. So he's driving around starting his speech. It's distracting everybody. Johan's getting impatient. Mom comes home. Kenny's like, Swellen, Mom's home, like that whole thing. And then have like maybe Johan like walks out, like fires a gun in the air, and he's like, all right, nobody move, like does that. And Brian comes around the corner and runs him over by accident. He's like, oh God, what did I do? Like
oh man. Okay, I wasn't seeing that coming, but okay, yeah, that'd be funny.
I just figured, how do we take out the big bad guy in a comedic way?
Oh, that'd be awesome. Okay, so let's back up just for a second. I think it's funny if the mom, when she reveals herself, what she says to Swell is like, Swell, you're in big trouble, young lady, or something like that. And this is when, Udo or the big boss man or Pete, they pull out the gun and they're like, no, you're all in trouble. Like, everybody freeze,
Yes. Like, I've had enough of this. I want my jewels, and it's like, have people like, jewels? What the fuck are they talking about? Like, yeah, exactly. Like, so everybody's confused, and then like, fucking Brian comes around the corner and accidentally runs him over, and he's like, oh yeah. God, no.
Well, that's perfect, yeah, because Brian comes around the corner. Well, first of all, you would have thought he would have seen all those fucking cars outside and questioned something happening, but whatever. I guess He's kind of he's love struck.
He's just like, whatevs, you're having a party.
Yeah, that's the thing. He drives in, he gets out like, oh, you're having a party. So yeah, we changed that to he drives in, he's still driving while he's looking around going like, what's going on? They're having a party. Thunk.
We just killed the old German guy. Shit.
Well,
okay, or maybe not killed, but hurt him at least.
Yeah. Let's just have it hurt him, or maybe he like runs into Tyrone. Okay, so I'm totally cool with the idea of like we just take out Udo in this like kind of like funny way, and then maybe Tyrone and Connor just like get scared and run away, and like maybe Pete's the only one left who I don't know, maybe he takes off or something, maybe he demands for the jewels, or I don't know, but it would be funny if there was this this other ending where now it's like a hostage situation where Udo, or not Udo, I keep saying Udo, Johan, where Johan, the big boss, he's there and he's like, nobody leaves until I get my jewels, and maybe Brian comes around the corner and thunks into Tyrone or one of the other guys. He gets out and maybe Johan grabs him like, now I have a hostage, like, nobody move, or like, Clown Boy gets it. And again, I don't know what the beat by beat here is, but we suddenly ramp up the danger of now there's like a hostage situation, a guy with guns, like nobody knows what's going on, nobody knows anything about jewels, and maybe Kenny is trying to like get the kids to like hide, like run away. And what I think would be funny is if we break this tension with the kids get to save the day, like maybe Melissa swings she fires a fucking baseball bat like right at Johan, like swings the bat and pops a baseball right at him. Maybe like I don't know, Walter swings down off the roof and like this time he didn't break his leg, like whatever. I don't know that this is as good as like the funny ending of just taking him out like fucking Regina George by the bus at the end of Mean Girls, but we could also do this whole like violent hostage situation at the end.
Sure, I do like that, but here's where my mind immediately went. So like we do something like either like we take out Johan, with the car. So like the big scary guy is out, but Pete is the other one that has like the fucking smarts about him.
Sure.
Maybe like Connor and fucking Connor and Tyrone take off like, oh shit, like the boss is dead, run, Yeah. And like they just all out panic. And then like Pete, where he was stationed, like have him like walk out onto the runway with a fucking gun, be like, all right, nobody move. And then have like maybe Kenny or Zach or somebody like point the spotlight on him and have him kind of like blinded for a second.
Nice.
And then have them just play it up and be like, and here we have, you know, like, and they just give him like John as our bank robber outfit, and have him just be like, what? And then like have everyone start clapping all excitedly. And then literally he just changes his career to be a model because they love him. And he's just like, my boss is dead. My fucking henchman ran away. Fuck it, I'm a model now.
Okay. Oh, yeah. This is what we do. Okay. No, this is perfect. I fucking love this. This is great. Yeah. We take out, forget the violent ending. We do the funny ending. It's kind of like the Wayne's World thing. Like let's do the super happy ending. Yeah. So they take out Johan. Yeah. Connor and Tyrone look at each other and just hightail it out of there. Like they leave a dust cloud. And so they're gone. Just exactly to your point, Pete comes out. He's on the stage. He's got the gun on Swell because, of course, she's the ringleader. And yeah, they shine the spotlight on him to do exactly what you said. He hides the gun real quick, or maybe it's a prop. And then she introduces him like, oh, we have John the bank robber, and have him look around. Yeah, they're clapping at the close, and then he just starts like sashaying, like, oh, I'm into this. Like this is cool,
Yes.
And then, maybe he like jumps off the stage and runs off at the end, something where it's like, okay, end this. I don't know how the kids are going to react to like, why was there a guy with a gun at our party? But my point is, we have to cut to the end and do like a end of credits stinger or a mid credits scene where we see this big fashion show and all these people around, and like cameras are going off and the music starts playing, and it's like the models are coming out on the runway like it's a Calvin Klein show or something, and here comes fucking Pete all out in his underwear, like like later on he was like, yeah, I really did like being a model, so he just like changes to be like an underwear model or something.
Yes. And we can still do like everything end the way it did, like, because it was like, again, why would Brian, why would any of them accept like what just happened? Why would the fashion gurus accept that there was just a random fashion show at some 17-year-old's house? But they just do in the movie. Everyone just accepts how it happens. So like, yeah, the like, okay, there was this giant heist thing going on, and Sue Ellen is just as confused as everyone else, but they all think she planned it. It was like part like the big finale, and she just went with it. She was like, all right. And, because it saved the company, Rose is just like, I don't care what happened. We got all sorts of new clients, like tons of meetings lined up. So we just play it off in that way of like, nobody cares what happened. Yeah. Everyone's like, everyone is just as confused, but they don't care. Kind of like how we write off the car in the actual movie. They're like, what do we do? Yeah. Tell the cops that some drag queen stole our car? Like, it wasn't even our car. But we do the other stinger where we see the two mortuary guys like at the gravesite and have them be like, oh, she was such a sweet old woman, and have the guy be like, what do you mean sweet old woman? She never, you never met her. Be like, yeah, but she left us all of her money and all of those diamonds. Where do you think she got those? And have them be like, I don't know, but we're going to Bermuda next week. Like, so like, just have some kind of like that. Those guys got the money. That's where the diamonds ended up. They were on her person in some way, like, and we wrap it up in that way where it's like, yep, all the little loose ends came together.
Yeah, that's all you need. Yeah, and it'd be funny if, like, backing up just a minute, if that scene where Swellen and her mom are talking and she's kind of explaining everything, the scene that ends with her telling her mom to go to her room, during that conversation, have her mom be like, and who was the guy with the gun? Like, was that part of the show? And then have Swellen just look outside and be like, I don't know. And that's it. Right. That's all we get.
Yes.
That's all we get.
And I mean, for a movie as irreverent as this, I feel like that fits perfectly.
Yeah. I think it's awesome. Yeah, this is not what I was expecting when I came up with this idea, but this is really fun. I think it's great.
I'll be honest, dude, like I said, I had no fucking clue what to do going into this, so I'm really happy with how this came out. Because like, how do you improve on Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead? It's a fun 90s time capsule. Like, yeah. It's the type of movie, and I haven't watched the remake, so I can't say this for certain. I was going to say it's not the type of movie you could do today, but they did remake it. I think it was last year or this year. Let me see. I had it pulled up.
It was this year. Yeah. I actually
Yeah.
just found out about it today when I was like looking up on IMDb for the cast, making sure that I had all the names right. And I'm like, oh shit, there's 2 entries on IMDb for this. Like, what the
Yep.
hell?
I found that out last night when I looked up the cast. I was like, wait, what? They did a remake? So now I am going to watch this at some point because I love the original movie. So I'm like, well, shit, let me see the remake. Let me check this out. But I do feel like you couldn't have the same irreverent comedy that you have in the 90s. The 90s was a very particular type of comedy. Um,
Yeah.
and like, yeah, like they didn't give you much explanation. It was just like you accepted that that's how it was in the movie world. Like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And I feel like Last Action Hero is the best example of that because Last Action Hero takes that concept and like breaks the fourth wall with it and is explaining to you like, yeah, this is what we do in Hollywood. This is what the Hollywood world looks like. And you
Mhm.
just accept it, and they point out all that lunacy. And that's one of the reasons I love that movie now. As a kid, I hated that movie. As an adult, I fucking love it.
Same.
But yeah, it's like with Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, I feel like we could like that's the best way to do this is just be like, fuck it, keep it weird. You
Yeah.
know?
I think this is fun. Yeah, I mean, it got off to a little bit of a rocky start, and we had to backtrack a couple times and figure things out because it is kind of a strange idea. But I think it works great. And what was difficult about it was not the story, because I think that came out really smoothly once we figured out what the hook was. But what gave us the most trouble was the timing, because we've
Yeah.
never done this idea where we don't change the original movie that much and we just add in this other element. We just stitch on this whole new side story, and it was a little bit difficult just trying to like figure out where the scenes fit together. Had we planned it ahead of time, I would have just laid out all the scenes on a piece of paper and knew exactly where stuff fit in. But I think just doing it, from memory, from having seen the movie a few hours ago, I think we did pretty good.
Oh yeah, well, and that's the thing with this show. We've talked about this before. This is like an elevator pitch. Like, I mean, yeah, some of our episodes we lay out like beat by beat by beat, and other episodes we kind of do like the more like, okay, then this happens, where we're kind of doing an elevator pitch, and that's kind of what the show is about. Is it's elevator pitch the show.
Yeah, exactly. And it harkens back to our slasher camp episode, the first one when we did Freddie and Jason bros before bitches. Or, is that what it was? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where we just had all these random ideas of, oh, there should be a scene like this and there should be a scene like this, and it was totally out of chronological order, but people got where we were coming from. We got some good feedback from that episode. So while I don't think that this Christina Applegate vehicle would hold up to the genius that is Freddie and Jason, but the original movie was a lot of fun, and I think that if they had added in these bizarre elements, it would have been an even better movie.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
I feel like, go ahead.
I was gonna say, because again, like in the 90s, we had, there was something about like I kind of missed this. It's like we talked about the like community, like Save the Community Center type movies that we've kind of lost over the years. I feel like we've also lost this like tongue firmly in cheek, absolutely ridiculous action comedy or like horror comedy, or like where it's so over the top and silly and ridiculous, but you just accept it for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you just go with it. Like you accept the physics and whatever the rules of that movie that they established at the beginning, and you just go with it. Like whatever they say is true. Yeah, cool. Like that.
Yep.
If that's how this world works, like this is your interior logic. Like okay, cool. Like let's go.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's really fun, and I can't think of any good examples off the top of my head where they have these sort of like weird crime side stories, but I think of movies like Police Academy 5, of Assignment Miami Beach, where
Yes.
like it was almost like the jewel thief sequences were almost like an afterthought, like, and it was just because they needed a big chase at the end, but you could have done that whole movie without those things, I think. So yeah, I think it's kind of funny, and I think it's very fitting of the era that we ended up going with Jewel Thieves. But yeah, it's funny. For a minute there, I was thinking, man, it would be funny if we pulled like a Goonies where one of the kids like finds the bag of diamonds in the house somewhere, like after everything is all over,
That actually would have been fun too.
No, but I kind of like this idea of like, yeah, the mortuary guys, they got everything. You know?
Yep. And they just had a really fun time.
Yeah. Well, all right, man, this was really fun. Yeah, I think we can just wrap it up right here.
Yeah.
Maybe not the most bombastic blockbuster of an action movie for our 75th episode, but this is really fun. I like the fact that we can still do stuff like this that's funny, where we can crack each other up, and it doesn't have to be horror.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But that being said, our next episode will probably be horror, so stick around.
That is also true, because we do have a few original ideas coming up, as well as a few horror topics that we've discussed. So, and I can tell you at least two of the original ideas that we have will be horror related. So,
Yep. We have some originals coming up, and we haven't planned our spooky season yet, but we probably should get on that pretty soon, because after we do the next couple of episodes that we were talking about, I haven't looked at the calendar, but we're going to be into September, October. So yeah, I think after these next couple that we already decided on, we need to start pulling out, the spooky movies off the shelf and see what we can come up with for this year.
totally agree.
Awesome. And it's funny too, because just yesterday I was reorganizing some stuff on my comic book shelves, and I realized that I had an Image Holiday Special trade paperback, where it's like an anthology of like short Christmas stories, and it's from years ago. And I thought I had read it, but when I picked it up off the shelf, I'm like, no, I didn't read this. I only read a few of the short stories in it because they were printed somewhere else. And I was like, oh, cool. Like I have a book that I haven't read that I didn't even know about, and I'm like, cool, I'm going to save this one for my Christmas reads this year because I'm running out of those. But I was like, oh man, I have so many scary books to read for All Hallows Read that I literally have already started thinking about it.
Nice. But I mean, that's the thing. Like with spooky season, you either are reading something spooky, watching something spooky. Like it's just fun. So of course we're gonna have to do that. I am excited though for some of our original concepts that we haven't locked them down, but we've tossed some ideas around, and I can't wait to hear what people think.
Yeah,
so I'm very
absolutely.
excited for that.
There's at least one that is just absolutely ridiculous. Maybe two fit that category.
Yeah. The one in particular I'm thinking of, I just keep giggling at the because well, you know what, I already did announce that there will be a sequel to the Vangabus of Horror. We already announced that in another episode. But
yeah.
you added a wrinkle. You just texted me a simple sentence and I lost my shit. I was like, oh my god, this needs to be part of it. So I'm very excited for what we got planned.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait for that one. That one's going to be awesome, because other than that sentence, I don't know what else you would do. So I'm like, cool, this will be a lot of fun.
It's going to get weird. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly. So let's wrap it up right there. Thanks everyone for listening, tuning in once again to the Raised by Rentals program. You can find us online, raisedbyrentals.com, at Raised by Rentals on the socials. I say it every time. It's very obvious. Also check us out at radpantheon.com to check out all the other awesome podcasters, artists, musicians, etc. that we've all banded together to help each other out. Mike, you got anything going on? Is Boogeyman's Closet still on hiatus?
Unfortunately, yeah. I'm hoping to bring us back in August. I'm trying to finish up the children's book that I'm working on. As long as I can get a couple more pages in the can, then I should be able to start going back to the regular podcasting. It's just definitely a struggle to find time to both do a dedicated, Boogeyman's Closet episode every week and work as much on this book that I'm working on. So hopefully if I can get some more pages in the can, we can come back in August. I have plans. I really wanted to get back this month, but timing is terrible. But then, of course, Count Creepyhead Saturday Morning Monster Mash, and then Member Berries and Munchies. I know I already posted the first 2 episodes. I have a couple others in the can. That will be coming out more regularly in the coming weeks. And then, like I said, hopefully Boogeyman's Closet will be back soon.
Awesome. I hear you when it comes to scheduling being fucked up. I've had so much stuff going on in my personal life that I've barely had time for like hobby pursuits. I haven't been reading as much, and I haven't been able to put as much time into the podcast. And because of that, we've gotten off schedule. So this episode and the 2 prior to this have both come out a lot later than I expected. But I really want to try to get back on a regular schedule, because as we said just a few minutes ago, we have these episodes that we want to do that we already planned. We have spooky season coming up. We typically do some kind of like a Christmas holiday special, and I want to make sure that we hit all of those milestones on the calendar in the right way. So I'm going to try really hard to get this show back on track after we've had a little bit of a lazy summer. So if you're still listening, stick around for the new episodes we've got coming up. If you had fun with us, visit us on the socials, drop us a line, leave a comment, leave a podcast rating. Let us know what you think we should improve next time. And with that, I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And we have to return some videotapes. Raised by Rentals is a member of the Rad Pantheon Network. Visit radpantheon.com to support rad stuff. The theme music is Forbidden Fruit by Velvet Bethany. You can purchase music and learn more at velvetbethany.com.
Swell, one more thing.
Yeah, Mom?
Where is the babysitter?